Now, nominations for the top 5 leaders of the Limpopo ANC finally got underway in the early hours of this morning after a lengthy delay. Delegates were made to stand in the freezing cold outside a plenary venue as they were verified manually. This after concerns were raised that bogus delegates had made their way into the conference hall. Regional Chairperson Stan Matabata is seeking re-election for a 3rd term, and he's up against Dixon Masemola. eNCA's reporter Moloko Moloto is in Polokwane and joins us now for an update. A very good morning to you, Moloko. Of course, we're expecting a very busy day, a very busy weekend, and a busy weekend that had already started yesterday, things going into the wee hours of this morning. I mean, just take us through why it is exactly that the process of nominations was happening at about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Hi, Morena Mutupi. Absolutely. One thing I can tell you is that as media practitioners, we have not slept a beat. It was just a matter of going to the hotels to freshen up and come back for this particular crossing. The conference started officially yesterday at around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was initially meant to start at around 10 in the morning, and it was officially opened by the Treasurer General of the ANC, but in his capacity as the acting Secretary General, Paul Mashatile. And afterwards, the chairperson of the African National Congress in the province, well, he was chairperson until early this morning when the PEC was officially dissolved. Stan Matabata then delivered the political report, essentially outlining what they, as the outgoing PEC, believe is the state of the ANC, not only in the province, because his political report was really touching on the state of the ANC nationally, going on to say that issues that were basically highlighted as far as 2007 during the national conference of the ANC here in Polokwane, highlighted again during the 2017 conference, issues such as careerism, elitism, and people who are really all about amassing wealth all in the name of the ANC. Stan Matabata saying, sadly, those issues continue to persist. To date, they have never been attended to, saying that actually they threaten to even collapse the African National Congress if they are not going to be resolved. So he was generally frank, and Paul Mashatile in his opening remarks saying that this particular conference has to be a conference of ideas, not only to be preoccupied with the election of leaders, going on to say that the people of South Africa are expecting the things to change in South Africa, and they are expecting those things to change immediately. But then it went on, obviously, as journalists, we were kicked out of plenary. It was now time for a closed session where the organizational report was tabled behind closed doors. We have not been able to see that report. We are hoping we will get hold of it as time goes on. Now, the issue of credentials, we understand, according to Tokoti Diza, who is the convener of the National Executive Committee members to this particular province, during a media briefing, she said that there was a meeting of the Provincial Executive Committee which was cleaning up, those were her words, the credentials. Now, what happened then was that when the delegates were inside plenary, they were made to come out. And at that time it was freezing cold. The temperatures were as low as 5 degrees Celsius. It was because there were complaints that some of the people who were in there, were possibly bogus delegates. So they were made to be verified manually. And that process took approximately 3 hours, Morena. But in the end, things were hunky-dory. There were no more complaints. They went back into plenary, and we were called to get back into plenary, where nomination was undertaken. And according to the agency, there were 1,185 eligible voters or delegates. And the nomination began with Stan Mathabatha nominated, as well as MEC of Public Works Department, Dr. Dixon Masemola, contesting him. And as I speak to you now, the delegates that you possibly are seeing behind me are continuing to vote. Actually, voting started at around 5 o'clock this morning, because that was just after plenary was dismissed, after all the nominees accepted nominations, with the exception of only one, who happened to be the third nominee for the treasurer position, the spokesperson of the ANC, Donald Selamulela. So as we speak, they are continuing to vote. Remember, this is a voting for only the top 5 leaders, and once they are elected, they are going to be announced.
Moloko, do you get a sense that Ndade Masemola can actually topple Ndade Mathabatha, or is there still a lot of power that Ndade Mathabatha holds in that province?
All right, Morena, the reception isn't quite good, but I understood you to be asking me whether I get a sense that Mathabatha still has command of the forces or the rank and file here. To be honest with you, Morena, the entire plenary, whenever they were singing, it was all about Stan Mathabatha. At no given point did they ever sing about the contender, Mr. or Dr. Dixon Masemola. And even when the nominations were made, you could see the jubilation. They were more on the side of the incumbents than Mathabatha. So if you were to look at the reaction from the plenary, you can presume that possibly Stan Mathabatha is going to be re-elected. But of course, voting is happening in a secret ballot, and the delegates were warned that they must not even take a cell phone into the voting booth. So the decision ultimately lies with the 1,185 delegates who are going to be casting their votes here.
Right. Moloko, we will definitely be keeping in touch with you throughout the course of the day as the voting continues, but we'll leave it there with you for now. That is our reporter out in Polokwane, Moloko Moloto. Of course, he did mention that from around 5 o'clock this morning, after the nominations had been put forward, that voting then began. So it's still happening at the moment, and we'll only know those results a little later on. But